So you guys remember the Nintendo Wii? Yeah, that was a pretty cool console, am I right? It has some pretty cool games like Super Smash Bros. Brawl, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, Wii Sports, Mario Party 9. Okay, wait, that game wasn't really the best, but I did have some fond memories of playing that one. And I'm sure y'all remember the Reshop channel as well. It was a cool place where you could buy games and such, especially NES and SNES games. And I'm especially sure you have heard of a little thing called WiiWare. WiiWare was an interesting area from the shop where you could buy games from other developers. Most of them were good, but some of them were not the greatest. We're not here to talk about the Wii and its legacy. We're here to talk about a series that originated from the Wii and WiiWare. A series that has stuck with me ever since I was a wee little lad who discovered it for the first time. A series that taught me multiple valuable lessons in life. And of course, that series is the BIT.TRIP series. So, what is the BIT.TRIP series? Well, the BIT.TRIP series is a series of 8-bit rhythm games. Each game has their own playstyle and mechanics that you need to master in order to excel at them. We're going to be looking at the original 6 games that marked the beginning of this wonderful franchise. Those 6 games being, in an order, BIT.TRIP Beat, BIT.TRIP Core, BIT.TRIP Void, BIT.TRIP Runner, BIT.TRIP Fate, and finally, BIT.TRIP Flux. As I mentioned before, each game has their own rule set and controls. While they are easy to learn, the games are known to be pretty challenging at times, but practice makes perfect after all. But what really makes these games stand out is that each of them tell a story. Now, it's pretty vague and hard to understand at first since they're mostly told from level backgrounds and cutscenes, but that's the reason why I made this video so I could tell you viewers all about it. And I may or may not have taken a little bit of inspiration from another BIT.TRIP video, which I'll leave in the description below for you guys to check out. Before I get into the story behind each game, I'll be talking about the gameplay so you can get an idea of how they work. If you want to skip to the story, I'll leave a timestamp on screen so you can do so. Anyways, let's get started. BIT.TRIP Beat's gameplay is pretty simple and straightforward. It's basically a one-player rhythm pong. You control the orange pedal on the left by tilting the controller up and down to block these small squares that come from the right, which are called beats. There are certain colored beats that do specific actions, such as the blue beats exploding into multiple smaller ones upon blocking them, red beats which will freeze your paddle in place for a short while, but they are mandatory to hit, power-up beats which will make your paddle longer, and challenge beats which will shorten the length of your paddle, but will reward you with a score increase depending on how many beats you successfully block while the challenge is occurring. Another thing that is important to keep track of, which also goes for every other BIT.TRIP game in the series, is the mode mechanic. There are several different modes in this series, with one of them being added to the next game in this series. Beat only has 3 modes: Nether, Hyper, and Mega. Hyper is the mode you always start each level in. Successfully blocking enough beats will fill the meter at the top, leading to Mega mode. While in Mega, the music will get an increase in instruments, the visuals pop out more, and you get an extra score multiplier if you fill the top bar again. However, if you miss beats, that will fill the bottom bar, which will bring you back down to Hyper. And if you continue to miss beats from that point forward, you'll be brought down to Nether. While in Nether, the screen will turn black and white, your score will increase if you block beats, and the music will disappear, only sounds will play if you block beats. This is your last chance to move back up into Hyper, otherwise missing more beats will lead into a game over, and you'll have to restart from the very beginning. The game can get pretty tough during the 2nd and 3rd levels, but it is a fun experience regardless. BIT.TRIP Core's gameplay is more complex than Beats. You control this red plus symbol at the center of the screen, and you have to hold a directional button to aim a laser in that direction, and press a button to fire at incoming beats. There's also a bomb that you can activate in order to remove all beats from the screen if you get overwhelmed, but you can only use it once per stage, and you'll miss out on getting a perfect score. The new mode introduced in this game is Super, which gives you a better multiplier and an extra percussion layer to the music, but you'll mow down if you miss one beat, unless you're playing on easy mode. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but I find this to be the most challenging game out of the 6 I've played. You have to have like really good reaction time in order to know what's coming, and with the different beat patterns this game throws at you, yeah, good luck. It's pretty tough, for me at least. BIT.TRIP Void's gameplay gives you more freedom than the last two games. You control this black circle known as the Void, to gather black beats while trying to avoid white beats. As you gather black beats, the Void will grow bigger, which can make trying to avoid white beats difficult. Thankfully, you can press a button to shrink it back down to its original size. Doing so will add points to your total score, as well as create extra music and effects, depending on what mode you're in. Speaking of, the new mode in this game is Ultra. While in this mode, your score multiplier will go up to a whopping 100. Though it's very difficult to stay in this mode for a while, since if you miss a black beat or hit a white one, you'll mow down instantly. One cool thing about this game is that it is one of the only two BIT.TRIP games to have checkpoints. In this case, if you get a game over, you can use one of your credits, which are gained from reaching a certain score threshold, to restart at that checkpoint. Though you do lose all your points upon doing so, so if you're aiming for a high score, you'll have to restart from the very beginning of the stage. The game is not too hard though, but it does throw in some tricks here and there. And now, we're getting to the fan favorite of this series, BIT.TRIP Runner. In this game, you take control of Commander Video himself, as he runs automatically throughout each level. You can jump, slide, kick, spring, and block certain obstacles. There are gold bars and cores scattered throughout each level that you can collect. Collecting all the gold bars allow you to enter in a bonus challenge styled around Atari's Pitfall. The cores, on the other hand, will increase your score multiplier in your mode. The highest mode in this game is Extra, which, upon reaching it, Commander Video gets his iconic rainbow trail. Look at it. Isn't it glorious? The game also has more content than its predecessors. While the previous games had 3 levels each, Runner has 3 worlds, which are actually called zones, 11 levels plus a boss level at the end. This is the only game in the BIT.TRIP series as of now to have 2 sequels, as well as a remake due to how popular it is. It's definitely an amazing game. BIT.TRIP Fate takes an interesting turn for the series. The game now acts as a horizontal shoot 'em up where you control Commander Video via a line known as the Vibe and shoot at enemies. If you're playing this on the Wii, you use the nunchuck to control him and the Wii remote to aim and shoot. Or you could use a classic controller. I don't know, I never even owned one. Commander Video's only way of taking damage is if an enemy or its bullet hits his core inside his body. There are also power-ups scattered around each level, with them being CV's friends. Each power-up has a different effect on your shots, such as Meat Boy allowing you to fire larger bullets that can pierce through enemies and their shots, and Command Girl Video allowing you to fire triple spec shots. But when you get to Giga Mode, which is the new and highest mode in this game, all of the power-ups will get an upgrade. And Commander Girl Video's power-up while in that mode is an absolute beast. Also enjoy this game a lot, and I feel like it helped me improve a lot in other bullet hell games. So, for the most part anyway. And here we have the last game of the hexology, BIT.TRIP Flux. The gameplay is pretty much the same as BIT.TRIP Beat, except the paddle is on the right side of the screen and the beats come in from the left side. I find this game to be significantly harder to beat, probably because they expect you to have already played through the entirety of that game. And like with Void, this game also has checkpoints, but unlike that game, if you mow down raw and nether, you won't get a game over, you will just restart from the last checkpoint you reach. The highest mode in this game is as a whole, the series itself, is meta. Reaching this mode will grant you a times 500 score multiplier, and some elements of the level background will change. But I'll leave that part for the story section. Phew, okay, that was a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if you skipped through all of that, probably because you might already know how the games work, but if you stuck around and hear me ramble, then thank you, that actually means a lot. But enough of that now, it's time to talk about the game's true message. All of these games together tell a story about birth, life, and death. The story of one man who goes through the hardships and trials that we go or may have already gone through. The story of Commander Video. first cutscene of the first level, Transition, shows Commander Video's physical body being developed. Transition first starts with his blue planet pulsing. This is mostly known to represent an egg cell, which is one of the two things required for reproduction. Later on in the level, you can see comets flying in, representing that Commander Video is unfamiliar with the concept of physicality. And near the end of the level, you see other people returning back to the ethereal. In this cutscene, Commander Video attempts to learn how to walk, but he is having trouble with doing so. The sand represents the fact that Commander Video has reached the point of no return on his birth journey, being pulled into physical conception, as represented by this planet filled with lava. Tribulation hits Commander Video hard, but he must shake it off and continue his journey. In the third level, Growth, Commander Video's brain begins to develop as shown in the background. At this stage, his body also begins to develop, and he becomes aware of everyday objects and such. At the end of Beat, Commander Video has finally learned to walk and move his body around. In the extra cutscene, Commander Video is consumed by a light, signaling that he is now born into the world. As this happens, he says a phrase which leads to the next game. In the cutscene of the first level, Discovery, Commander Video sees the outside world and the people who witness his birth. However, they seem very unfamiliar to him, and he is somewhat frightened at them, explaining why the background turns red and they start to become deformed. In Discovery, Commander Video gets to experience firsthand of what it's like to have a physical body. He interacts with his muscles, organs, bones, and limbs for the first time. Music in this game also reflects this, carrying a sense of childlike wonder and imagination. In Exploration's cutscene, Commander Video hasn't really figured out how everything works around here, but thankfully, his parents are here to guide him. Exploration is about Commander Video trying to figure out what lives in the darkness of his new life. Everything is daunting and confusing to him. The music in this level carries a bit of a darker tone, reflecting how Commander Video felt at this point of his life. In Control's cutscene, Commander Video starts to have an understanding of how his life works and how the world works as well. His parents arrive again to help him, but he decides to figure things out and go through life's challenges by himself. Control is where Commander Video starts to use his creativity to the fullest. He has ideas bouncing around his mind and begins to act more carefree. The music here reflects this, carrying a more playful and happy tone. The machines in the background represent his mind working to create the aforementioned ideas. At the end of Core, Commander Video has finally learned to control every aspect of his body. He is happily bouncing around and enjoying himself. However, that soon changes when he bumps into another person. It is there that he comes to one important realization. In id's cutscene, Commander Video gets his first taste at interacting with other individuals. However, he starts to come off as rude and power hungry, driving others away from him. While Void's story isn't told from each level's background, it's mostly told from the cutscenes in the gameplay. The Void you control could be interpreted as Commander Video's ego, the black beats could be interpreted as his growing humility, and the white beats could be interpreted as his greed for power. This could explain why you need to grab the former but avoid the latter. In the first level, id, Commander Video fights his impulse to control to be power hungry. In Ego's cutscene, Commander Video is still treating others as if they were lesser compared to him. However, he soon realizes that his actions have consequences and that he cannot fight against a society. During Ego, Commander Video starts fighting his greedy nature to constantly take from others. In Super Ego's cutscene, Commander Video finally gets a sense of humility. He is no longer power hungry and instead gets along with other people. Though, the boss fight at the end of Super Ego could represent his greedy nature attempting to come back to take control of him once more. Commander Video has joined the society he once went against. He now knows to treat people with respect the same way he wants to be treated. In the extra cutscene, Commander Video is now ready to take on the outside world. After learning everything about himself, how to interact with others, he is eager to begin his journey, which is accompanied by another phrase that he says with great enthusiasm. Inspiration strikes Commander Video greatly, and he is ready to venture throughout the world. Impetus is where Commander Video gets his urge to continue growing and overcome numerous challenges. The zone's landscape represents the wonder that he feels and the excitement of what he is going to experience next. However, near the end of Impetus, he encounters an enemy known as the Timbletot, which makes him realize that not everyone has his best interests in mind. Commander Video has enough bravery to explore different parts of the world, even if it may look scary. Tenacity is where Commander Video realizes that the world can be a not-so-kind place sometimes with everything going against him. Still, he doesn't lose his hopeful nature as represented by the music of his song. Commander Video has high anticipation on what he'll experience next. Even the smallest amount of waiting can be gruesome to him. Triumph is where Commander Video starts to see the true ugliness of the world. The music in this song has a somber and sad tone, representing his realization that this world is not as cheerful as he once thought. But with the help of some friends he's made along his journey, he is able to triumph. For now. Thanks to his impressive feats, Commander Video has received admiration from others. But even after receiving support from his friends, he still encounters negativity. He tries to defuse the situation peacefully, but the Temple Taunt retaliates with a phrase that seems to activate his tipping point. The Temple Taut's threats grow more infuriating. Commander Video begins to give pursuit as he is determined to end this banter once and for all. The entirety of BIT.TRIP Fate focuses entirely on negativity and how it can affect the world and the individual society. Throughout each level, you may see phrases such as no meaning, no joys, no friends, etc. Although he does have friends that help him, as represented as the power-ups, he is on his own journey. At the start, Commander Video only wishes to resolve things peacefully and means no harm. But that soon changes as he gets beaten throughout each of the game's levels. It is there which he is pushed to the breaking point where he feels nothing but anger. Once he finally comes face to face with the Temple Taunt, all he wants is to kill him. Unable to hold back anymore, he loses control and crashes into the Temple Taunt, killing them both in the process. Commander Video's friends are filled with sorrow at his death. Consumed by anger, he gave his life to deal the final blow. But even though his life is over, his story does not end here. He has one last journey ahead of him. Commander Video is dead, but he's not gone. He must now let go of any attachments he once had in his physical life and move on to his journey back into the ethereal. BIT.TRIP Fluxus themes focus primarily on death, finality, and the afterlife. All of the music tracks are filled with a sad yet comforting tone as Commander Video looks back on his life and what it has shaped him to be. In Epiphany, Commander Video must let go of previous attachments during his journey to enlightenment. The level's backgrounds art represent the idea of fate, and if you reach new mode, Meta, you're given a glimpse of our solar system. The boss fight in this level is where Commander Video goes up against his anger, the cause of his death. He must let go of that too in order to move on. In Perception's cutscene, Commander Video is introduced to 5 shapes. He is curious as to what they could mean to him. In Perception, Commander Video is able to see the physical world from the outside. He is in awe at how simple it is. Reaching Meta in this stage will reveal an egg cell dividing. In the boss fight, Commander Video must trust his instincts to avoid the anger he once had, which had driven him to blindness. Commander Video has figured it out. The 5 shapes each represent a part of his life, that being the previous games. He is almost home. In Catharsis, the background is transitioned from BIT.TRIP Beat, only it is seen from a new perspective. At the final boss, Commander Video must break down the final barrier that is anchoring him to his physical life, so he can transcend onward into his resting place. Commander Video has completed his journey. He finally understands everything about himself, his past life, and who he is. Now that his journey is over, it is time for him to return home. Everything comes from something. We were before we became. From life comes rhythm, and from rhythm comes life. We are beings of information. Everything is a conduit for learning. We communicate in bits and bytes. And we will return to something once we become nothing. After our bit trip is complete. Well, there you have it. That was the entire story of the BIT.TRIP hexology. I might have missed out on some key details, but that was basically a summary of the series. I would like to say how much of an impact this series has had on me ever since I found out about its story. I know that probably sounds like an odd thing to say, but it's honestly true. I don't think I've ever been so invested in a video game story to the point where even now I'm still playing the games even after finishing them. It basically stuck with me even after how much I've grown. People say video games can't teach moral lessons. Also, this was my first time doing a video essay on something, so let me know what you thought of it. And yeah, I did write an entire script for this because I didn't want to be so sloppy. And I may do another one like this, but no promises. But anyways, I just want to give a shout out to Zorgoff for recording each BIT.TRIP game with a TAS for me to use as background footage. I'll put a link to their playlist in the description so you guys can check it out. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe if you want to. And I'll see you magnificent galaxies in the next video. Peace.